Today we'll start data pump topic. First we'll see what is data pump and what it is why it is required for. So the first thing is in any environment all the code changes will go through software development lifecycle. So in the software development lifecycle you will have the dev environment, test, UAT. In some cases you'll also have QA and prod. If it is most critical environment, you'll also have a load test environment. So any code, if the developer is changing any of the code, that code needs to be migrated to the higher environments like to test, QA, UAT, load test, or prod. So in order to copy the changes, for example, if the user is created a new procedure, or if the user is trying to insert some new data, uh, which is important for developing a new API or to extend the existing features to the business needs. So he'll be inserting some data or he'll be inserting some content which is which is important to the business. So you need to copy the data from lower environments to the higher environments also. So in order to copy the data, or in order to copy the structural changes, or in order to copy the whole database itself from dev to test or test to QA or UAT, or in order to copy the entire application, we will be using data pump. So by using data pump, we can copy data from we can copy data, schema, table, table space, or the whole database from one database to another database. Okay, so these how these are the cases where we will use a data pump. So whenever you want to migrate the code changes, or whenever you want to move the data from one environment to another environment, or whenever you are moving an application. For example, you're trying to you'll be a DBA for a application which is being created from scratch. In that case, the application will be created on the lower environment first, dev, and also the data will be loaded into the dev. After that, once the developer performed, they think that all the functionality is working properly, you'll be moving the entire code from dev to the higher environments. So in that cases, you'll be using the data pump. So it will be depending upon the developer or the end user requirement. You'll either copy the data or the whole schema, or just a table or the whole table space or the entire database. So it depends upon the end user requirement, and using the data pump utility you will perform this task. Okay, the reason why we have to use a data pump, why can't we use select dbms underscore metadata dot get underscore ddl? So this will give us the ddl of an object, correct? After that, that script we can copy it to the another database and we can execute that script in order to create the objects. After that, using the DB link, we can copy the data from source to the target, but it will require a lot of time. And also you have to know the dependencies between the tables. For example, if you take EMP and department table, so if you extract the metadata from EMP and department table, after that you created the data tables EMP and department on the target. Once you create the tables, for example, you are trying to insert data into the EMP from score.emp at the rate source db name or source db link. So by specifying this one, it will try to insert records into the child table, but the corresponding records will not be present in the parent table. As a result, the foreign key constraint will be violated and you will not be able to insert the data. So you need to figure out all the parent-child relationships between the tables, and you need to do it manually. So it will take a lot of time. So that is the reason why Oracle developed a new tool called as data pump, which will, once you install the software, it will be available in the software binary itself. So even the data pump utility, you will have it under Oracle Home followed by bin directory. So this is where your SQL place is present, right? So in the same directory, you'll also have the data pump utilities. So there are two utilities under data pump. One is expdp and another one is impdp. So using expdp, we will unload from source. That means we will export either table, either object. I'll make it as object, either object or schema, entire table space, or database, or data. So using expdp, we will export the object, schema, table space, database, or data. So you can either export a table, package, procedure, function, depending upon your requirement. And using impdp, we will load the data into target. Uh, 1 second. I'll cancel the class and I'll continue tomorrow. Suddenly the college join అవ్వమని చెప్పొచ్చింది. Okay?
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, okay. Bye. Yeah. Yeah. So you guys remember, right? So data pump we'll be using in order to copy the structures of the objects, or in order to copy the entire schema, or in order to copy the database itself, or to copy a table space. So these are the options we can perform using the data pump. So if you go for manual approach, it will be very difficult for you to extract the metadata using DB1 and metadata. After that, copy data from the tables to the database link. So it will be harder for you. So to make your life easier, Oracle introduced data pump utility. So using which we can copy the entire schema, entire database, table space, or object structure, or the data which is present in the objects. So today we'll see how to use those utilities. So in data pump we have two utilities mainly, expdp and impdp. Expdp is used to unload the data from the source database. Unloading means it will not delete the data from the source database, it will just extract the data or the objects or the entire database or just the table space. So depending upon how you specify to export the source content. So expdp is used to extract the content from the database on the source side, and using impdp we will import the extracted data into the target database. So now we will see what kind of files are generated using these utilities. So the files will be generated whenever you use expdp, because this is a utility which will extract the content from the database. So output of expdp, you will have dump files. So it's a binary file, you cannot read it. And it will also generate a log file. So log file will record whatever the actions performed by the expdp. So if it has any errors while extracting the data, while extracting the content, it will add an entry into the log file with that error, such that you can using that error information you can see what caused the issue. So it will record whatever the actions performed by expdp. Using impdp utility, we will give the input as dump file, output of expdp, and this will import the content into the target database. And also it will give you an output log file which will have the entries related to the actions performed by IMPDP. Okay. Now, so how we can perform how we can perform the export. So for example, if we want to export Scott schema, okay, say for example if you want to export Scott schema, in this case Scott user itself can export the data from database using exvdp. If you want another user to perform the export, then that specific user should have export underscore full underscore database role. So this is the role which needs to be granted to a user if he wants to export another user objects. Okay, as the owner of the schema, he can export his schema objects, but if another user want to export the other schema, in that case the user needs to have export underscore full underscore database role. Okay, in a similar way, while performing the import, owner of the schema can perform the import, or the user, if you are trying to import as another user, in that case the user needs to have import underscore full underscore database role. So if you want to perform export or import other than the schema owner, those user needs to have export underscore full underscore database role and then import underscore full underscore database role while performing the import. Okay. Now,
Okay.
As I said, the output of expdp will give you dump files with extension .dmp. Now, this expdp utility is similar to SQL plus utility. So you need to invoke expdp at the Unix prompt. Okay. Once you invoke the expdp, the first process which will be started by expdp is called as master process. So this is the flow in which the process will be started whenever you are trying to export. The first step will be a master process will be started. A master process will be invoked. So what does this master process do? So this master process will create a table. It will be a temporary table. So I'll make it as will create a temporary table, and it will keep track of export process in the table, and then it will assign the work needed to extract the data, needed to extract the content to workers. So the second process which will be started as part of expdp is worker process. expdp or impdp, for both the process for both the utilities, this is the flow in which the processes will be started. So the first process is called as master process. This will create a temporary table and it will keep track of the export, like how many tables are exported, still how many tables needs to be exported, and how much time does it take to complete the export. So all that kind of information will be stored in that temporary table. And master process will be master process will take care of this creation of table and keep track of the progress, and also it will decide how much of work needs to be done, and it will assign those work to the worker process. Now, so the master process will be of the form ora underscore dmnn underscore process id. So this is how a master process will be. So usually it will be of dmnn. So that means it will be dm00. nn stands for the number. So if there is one master process, you will have dm00. Remember, for each and every expdp process or imbdp process, only one master process will be existing. So if you are invoking one expdp, one master process will be created. If you are invoking 3 or 4 expdp jobs, then there will be 4 master process. In that case, the master process names will be dm00, dm01, 02, 03. Okay, for each and every export process there will be only one master process, but the worker process may be many for each and every export process. So depending upon the parallelism, for example, if you want to export 300 GB of data from the source database, so 300 GB of export may take around 4 hours or 5 hours of time. So if you want to speed up the process, we will add a parallelism clause to the export process. So by adding parallelism clause, the 5 hours job may be decreased by 50%. For example, if you want to have parallelism as 4, instead of one worker working on extraction process, 4 workers will be working on extraction process. As a result, 5 hours job will be reduced to 1 hour job. So if you want to speed up the process, we will have parallelism. So depending upon the parallelism, the worker process will be created. By default, the parallelism is 1. So only one worker process will be created. If you want to speed up the process, you will specify the parallelism. For now, I'll just give the worker process as dwnn. So depending upon the parallelism, the worker process will be created. The next process will be client process. I'll make this way. Okay. So whenever you invoke the expdp, the first process will be client process. It's not master, it's client process. Sorry about that. So the way we invoke SQL plus, if we invoke SQL plus /sysdba, this is nothing but a client process. So this is a client. SQL plus utility is a client utility in order to connect to the database. So in a similar way, expdp is also a utility to connect to the database. But in using SQL plus, you can perform DDL or DML transactions. But using expdp, you can just perform extraction process. So whenever you invoke expdp, a client process will be created. Because for example, if you open a Word document, there will be word.exe in the task manager. That is nothing but a client process. In a similar way, if you invoke expdp, the expdp process will be running on the Unix machine, and it is called as a client process. So whenever you invoke expdp, a client process will be created. So this is the flow in which expdp process will work. So first it will create a client process, after that it will create a master process, and then the worker process. So worker process is the process, this is the process which will perform the actual work, the actual extraction work. So it may be extraction or it may be import work. So if it is performing an import, it will perform the import work. So this is the one which will actually perform the work. Now, as I said, and this not Upendra. So expdp output file is dump file, correct? So it needs to create files on the Unix side, not on the database side, because we'll not have files on the database side. The only files what we have in the database is data files and redo log files, not the dump files. So in order to create the dump files, it needs to be stored on the Unix machine. So you need to have some directory where you have to store the dump files. So in the database also, you have to create an alias name in the database which will point to the physical location. Then by using that logical name, we'll perform the export. That logical name will be an alias for the physical location. So once you give the logical name, it will be translated in the physical location and dump files will be created on the physical location. So first I'll show you how to export a schema. So I'll perform an expdp. I'll export Scott schema. Okay. So this is my database. Okay. This is a test database. I will export Scott schema from test database. So first, okay. So under slash backup, I want to store files. Maybe I'll not have the space, so I deleted some of the files. Now I'll create a directory here with the name datapump. Now if I want to know, okay, let me go into datapump location. Now if I want to know the present working directory, which command will give me the present working directory? I want to know the location where I am. PWD.
Yeah, PWD.
Yeah. So I am in slash backup slash datapump, correct? So I have to create a logical name in the database which will be pointing to this physical location. So we'll see how to create that logical name inside the database. SQL plus slash sysdba. Okay. So to create that logical directory, we'll use the command create directory name. So you can give that directory name as whatever you want. So what I'm giving is dp underscore, okay, expdp underscore dp. So this will be my directory name, which is a logical name inside the database, and this will point to the physical location. So the command will be create directory name as the physical location slash backup slash datapump. So this is how we'll create the directory. Okay. Okay. Now it's done. I want to perform the export of Scott schema. So as I said, who will have the permission to export the Scott schema? Just now I said, right? Who will have the permission to export the Scott schema? Owner of the schema or owner of the objects, or the user who has expdp or export underscore, sorry, expdp underscore full underscore database. Sorry, it's exp underscore full underscore database. So these are the users who will have the privilege to export the schema. Okay. Either owner of the objects or user who has exp underscore full underscore database role. Now my question is, if I want to export the Scott schema, as which user I can perform the export? Who is the owner of Scott objects? Scott, right? So I can perform the export as Scott user, correct or not?
Yes.
Okay. Now if I want to perform the export as Scott user, do Scott user need to have read and write privilege on slash backup slash datapump or not?
Yes, I mean it should have. Right.
Because it has to create the files under the directory, so it needs to have write privilege, correct or not? So yes. In order to in order to grant read and write permission on that directory to the Scott user, we cannot do chmod. We cannot use the chmod option. We cannot use chmod command because Scott user is not existing at the Unix level.
Yes, yeah.
So we need to grant read and write permission within the database itself. So in order to grant read and write permission on a directory to a specific user, the command will be grant read comma write on directory. The directory name is expdp what I give expdp underscore dp. Yeah, expdp underscore dp to Scott. So to assign a system privilege, to assign an object privilege, the command is like this only, right? Grant privilege on object name to the grantee. Yeah, so that's what I'm doing here. Grant read and write on a directory. The directory name is expdp underscore dp, and I'm granting the privilege to Scott user. Okay, first step in order to perform the export, you have to create the directory. Once you create the directory, you can use the same directory to create n number of exports. Now, if you want to know the information about the directories, there is a data dictionary view called as db underscore directories. That data dictionary view will give you the list of directories which are created in the database. So select star from db underscore directories. So if you see here, there are a lot of directories, almost around 9 directories. So let me make it some more readable. So call space directory underscore name for A19, call space directory underscore path for A100, set lines 400. Okay. So if you see here, the owner of all the directories are sysuser. So sysschema is owning all the directories because I logged in as sysuser and I created expdp underscore dp. So that is the reason why the owner of the directory is sys. And now expdp underscore dp is a directory name inside the database, and it is pointing to slash backup slash datapump. Okay. And whenever you're creating a database, by default all these directories will be created. And remember, if you don't specify the directory name while performing the export, it will use the default directory name, which is data underscore pump underscore dir.
Okay.
So you need to make sure you have to specify the directory name each and every time you invoke the export. Otherwise, it will go to the binaries where the Oracle binaries, it will go to the location where the Oracle binaries are installed.
Okay.
The default name is data underscore pump underscore dir. If you see here, this is pointing to slash Oracle. So slash Oracle is the mount point where we install the Oracle binaries, correct?
Yeah.
So if you don't specify the directory and the dump files go into this location, and if the mount point is filled up, as a result the database will be in hung state.
Okay.
సో మౌంట్ పాయింట్ ఫుల్ అవుతే ఏమవుతుందంటే పీమాన్ ఉందనుకోండి, సారీ ఫర్గెట్ అబౌట్ పీమాన్. ఇఫ్ యూ టేక్ dbwr, it needs to write it operations into the trace file, right? Or underscore dbwr.trc. So if the mount point is filled up, it cannot write it actions into the trace file. As a result, dbwr will be in a waiting state. In a similar way, all the other background process will also be in waiting state. And as a result, you cannot progress with your transactions and the database will be in a hung state. So remember not to forget specifying the directory name while performing the export.
Okay.
Now if I want to know who are the users have read and write privilege to this directory, which view will give me that information? Already told you, I am expecting an answer from you. So
Directory and the privileges.
no, which view will give me the privilege information? I mean, like which view will give me object privilege information?
Object privilege DB underscore privileges.
DB underscore privileges. Okay, let me
View.
describe that. DB underscore privileges. It says the object is not existing. The view is db underscore tab underscore privs. ఒక 5 టైమ్స్ చెప్పుంటాను చెప్పినప్పుడు ఇది tab అని ఉన్నా టేబుల్ నేమ్ అని ఉన్నా ఇట్ విల్ హోల్డ్ ఆల్ ది ఆబ్జెక్ట్స్. The column name table underscore name అని ఉన్నా కానీ it will have all the object types. So if I want to know who are the users having read and write privilege on a directory, I have to go for db tab privs only. In a similar way, if I want to know who are the users who have execute privilege on a package, even in that case I have to go for db tab privs. So select grantee table underscore name privilege from db tab privs where table underscore name equal to expdp underscore db. I'm interested in only this directory name. So if you see here, Scott user has read and write privilege on expdp underscore db. Okay, and this is how you have to check.
Okay.
Now as Scott user has read and write privilege on the directory, we are good to perform the extraction process. So I'll open another terminal. I'll set the environment to test. Using expdp, we'll perform the import. So before we'll perform the export. So before performing the extraction process or the export process, I'll just show you. If I type expdp and then press enter, it will invoke expdp utility and it will prompt for the username. So as which user you want to log into the expdp utility. So I'll give it as Scott and then it will ask for the password. I'll specify the password as tiger. Okay, it is connected to expdp and by default it will perform the export of Scott schema. So let us go ahead and check, are there any process which are running. Grep dm. So if you see here, master process is started dm00.
Okay.
Sorry. Okay, even the worker process is started. So there will be only one worker process because I haven't specified parallelism. And where these files will go and store, I haven't specified the directory name, right? I just connected to expdp utility by specifying the username and password. So it started the extraction process or the export process and it is exporting the Scott schema. If you see here, it exported emp underscore temp table, emp temp partition, department, emp. Now it will also show you how many rows it exported. If you look at emp underscore temp, it exported almost 20 lakh rows. Okay, now at the end of the line it will show you the dump files are created under oracle app oracle admin test dpdump expd.dmp. So why the export files went into that location? Question.
We created the directory and we gave the permission, but still it's going to our directory. Right?
Sorry?
Oh, we already created the directory and
The directory which we created is pointing to /backup/datapump, correct?
Yes, yeah.
But where it is going? The dump files are going into
Oracle, yeah.
So what is the reason why it's going into that location? I said if you don't specify the directory name, by default it will take datapump underscore dir. Correct or not?
There. Yeah.
So if you see here, datapump underscore dir is pointing to Oracle app Oracle admin
Yeah.
test dpdump. So that is the reason why it went into that location. And if you don't specify the dump file name, by default the dump file name will be exp.dat.dmp.
Okay.
So let me go into that location. So if you see here, one dump file is created and the size of this file is kb 123 MB. It's 121 MB. The size of this file is 121 MB. And if you look at the first entry in the export process, first it estimated how much the size of the dump file will be. So the size of the dump file was approximately 144 MB. So when